Money Vikings, thank you for joining me today. I want to go through kind of 5 or 6 of sort of the big picture themes I am seeing play out in terms of investing and building a life of true wealth in 2024. So, first of all, if you're new to the channel, thanks a lot for tuning in. We have been at this for many years with our blog, truewealth.moneyvikings.com. And the whole point of Money Vikings is to provide the best information possible we can in terms of personal finance, investing, health, and I do some collectibles as well. And the whole idea here is to build a life of true wealth, right? And that is a combination of, proper sound financial management, money management, investing. That is balancing that with health and family and relationships. And then we also throw in things like art and collectibles in there. So that's kind of how we see the world, and that's the information we're providing. So what do I see going on in 2024? So 2024 is interesting. We're reaching the halfway point of what we called in 2020 the raging 20s. So instead of the little play on words there, instead of the roaring 20s, we called it the raging 20s because it's kind of a time where there's a lot of technological change. There's a lot of geopolitical change. A couple years ago, we went through this pandemic thing that we all want to forget about. And so there was a lot of turmoil at the beginning of this decade, and it's kind of gone through. There's been different sort of forces at play on the macro level in the world that can affect our lives. So with all that, we're trying to ensure that all of us, you included, that we have a life that is, we're building wealth with sound investing principles. We are enjoying life along the way, enjoying the journey, and then taking care of our health and our family. So one big theme for 2024, I would say, is if possible, now that inflation in some areas has subsided, and I think there's been a little bit of an uptick in people's incomes. They might have gotten a little bit of a raise or somewhat of a good raise in the new year. I would say that the inflation pressures are easing. Now it's interesting, you don't quite see it at the gas pump. That's the biggest place that a lot of times people notice that. But at the same time, I think that we are seeing there's number one, we're probably getting used to some of the prices. We put in place the inflationary defense systems, the IDSs that we've talked about for a couple of years. And that's a lot about finding all those things you can cut back on, those subscriptions that you're not using, et cetera, et cetera. Just anything you can think of where you can reduce, and then places where you can buy in bulk, going big on the Costco stuff where you can sort of, reduce the individual cost of things. Definitely subtracting wants versus needs, that kind of thing, getting a little bit of a back to basics thing. If there's was extra fluffy stuff, trying to get that out of the budget. So that's one thing. So my point is this: now that I think inflationary pressures are starting to ease on people, at least we're starting to feel it, I think, a little bit better. Not that we're out of the woods. I don't think we're out of the woods, but we're starting to feel a little bit that it might be time to up the 401k contribution. So if you're lucky enough to have an IRA, self-directed IRA, or a 401k, one of our biggest things is automating your path to wealth, right? You're trying to be like Odysseus and tie yourself to the mast where you are not your own worst enemy, and you are definitely going towards that growth over time. So if there's a way to 1 percentage point up or a couple $100 more a month, increasing that 401k or that IRA, that is, I think, a big thing to do in 2024. I would say getting back to fundamentals in terms of owning assets versus liabilities. So this has to do with, I think I talked about it on the channel maybe 5-6 months ago, finally did a very detailed budget. And what that opened my eyes to was how much money is flowing into assets, how much is flowing into liabilities. You always want to think of ways to cut down those liabilities. Liabilities are things like car payments, sort of bad credit card debt for like stuff, probably debt for like a trip, like travel. Probably don't want to go into debt for that kind of stuff. Those are liabilities. Definitely want to reduce those. Assets, of course, are things like, are you paying on a mortgage into a piece of real estate? Now, if it's a reasonable mortgage that you can afford within your budget, it's at least being directed into something that over time will probably increase in value or at least hold its value. So you'll at least someday get that money back in some fashion. So that's important. So that's number two. On the collectibles front, so you guys, any of you that watch the channel or you watch the collectibles side of it, definitely been ramping back on that. Kind of big into that for a while, but I want to be really picky and choosy now. I do not want to collect willy-nilly or just buy boxes of cards and stuff. It's a big waste of money, actually. And, unless you're opening it for fun as a form of entertainment and you can afford it, it's really not an investment. Now, I do believe there are things, I think there are out there like blue chip sort of comics that I do think will hold their value over time. I think in general, anything Spider-Man, anything Batman, some Superman, X-Men, you've got those classics out there that, Wolverine, those are just typically going to hold value over time. They're very, very popular icons and characters that people love. So that's on the collectibles front. Next thing I want to mention is health. Really doubling down here on health. When you go through a health scare or you lose a loved one, as I have gone through, a lot of us have gone through, I'm a human like everyone, that really makes you want to think about your diet and your sleep and your stress and the food you're putting in your body. So that's another thing that I think should be a theme for 2024. And the last one I want to talk about is experiences. So we're definitely I think we're out of the pandemic completely. But a lot of us, it did affect us, right? And I think there was, people weren't traveling as much. They weren't seeing other people as much. So I think it's still a good time to open ourselves up to new experiences. I think traveling, visiting people, seeing new places, I think that makes the world a better place in general. We get to experience something, we get to try new food, new cultures, see a new perspective. It's all one planet. It's not that big of a planet if you look at the universe, swirling through space. But it is an amazing planet and worth seeing. So those are some themes for 2024. I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribe. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.